Or your shitty internet?
I mean, I can't vouch for my internet, but it seems fine on my end.
Okay. I just had a little hookup and I just changed networks. Ready to go?
Let me just pull up our
You're back
conversation.
at your LA house?
Yeah, my parents. All right, let's do it.
Ready?
Let's try to make this quick 30-minute rip.
30 minutes? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Let me pull up
keep it dense.
the Discord.
Yep.
Okay. What are we starting with?
Let's just start with talking about the market. There's a little relief pump, and then this was a dump. Strangely, in the stock markets, we're seeing it stay kind of consistent.
Okay. All right. Ready?
Yeah, my stocks are up.
I don't pay attention to stocks. I only pay attention to stocks when people are saying that they're correlated to crypto.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason you'd be paying attention. And crypto is sideways and down, and stocks are up. Stocks only go up, dude.
Stocks only go up. Okay, ready? Welcome, everyone, to POV Crypto, the only podcast that both Bitcoiners and Ethereans listen to. I'm David Hoffman, here with my buddy Christian. Christian, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Drinking a cold Corona, enjoying a nice Wednesday. I thought it was a Saturday. During Corona.
It's a Tuesday.
During lockdown. I can't even tell my Wednesdays from Saturdays from Tuesdays, so here I am. I discovered Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo Switch this weekend. Wow, they did a great job. I immediately bought one. As soon as I discovered it, I was like, I have to have this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am one long plane ride away from getting a Switch, but since it's COVID times, it looks like I'm going to be sitting on my hands.
Yeah, dude, they have no Switches at Target or anything like that.
Really? Maybe they have no Oculuses either.
All the good stuff just completely picked over. Supply chains are fucked.
Yeah, and especially because everyone's been making money in their particular assets that they own. Like, so a Switch isn't all that expensive anymore. Assets are up. Well, I guess no, that's not true. In the legacy markets, assets are moving up. In the crypto markets, they're flat. But yeah, so we are on the cusp. And so, yeah, so like, I feel like there's this looming bear market, right? Like it's in the rear view mirror, but you can still see it. Like it's still there, right? Like we haven't killed it. Like there's still the threat of like sub 10K BTC. There's still the threat of like sub $300 Ether, right? And like for I feel like those are the bullish lines for all assets, right? And like we're still basically just like riding on that line.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I feel scared when I say the bull market is here because I feel like it's just one stock market dump away from not being true.
Yeah, no, that's totally right. That's totally right. So like we're riding, Bitcoin's riding on top of the 20-week moving average, which is like the meme moving average for Bitcoin, right? Like if Bitcoin's above the 20-week moving average, then it's a bull market. And if it's below the 20-week moving average, then it's a bear market, right? And like we're sitting right on it. And it's been acting as resistance, which means we're in a bull market. But like just like you said, we're sitting right on top of it. And we are like, we're just another resurgence of COVID away from a bear market, right?
So Bitcoin Tina says that he thinks stocks dumping is good for Bitcoin because that means that regulators are going to get off their ass and pump more money into the system, or at least try to make it seem like they're doing that. And that would pump Bitcoin and other assets even further up.
You mean
what's your take on that?
He's looking for more money printing. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, he thinks that money printing needs to happen for stocks to keep going up and for assets to keep going up, and that the Fed will ensure that and regulators will ensure that happens.
Yeah, some of the takes I've been hearing is that like we are in like the second or maybe the third inning of like money printing, right? Like money printing is going to continue, right? And like the state is positioned to where like there kind of needs to be a third wave of COVID, third wave for the United States second wave for the rest of the world. But like the state is positioned to like really need that third wave in order to like be legitimate and justify all the things that they're doing. And then also so we can print a bunch more money.
Yeah, I don't even know how to feel about that. I really don't want more waves. I want it to end.
I want it to end. I do want it to end. I went to a brewery the other day where like they kind of had a nice system where like, you know, they would show you to your table to like give you the instructions like, okay, like this is what you do now. Like you put your cups here, like you wear the mask while you do this. You know, here's this little card that you put, and when you're up from your table, you do this. Like people are figuring it out. Like people are making the system, right? Like people are figuring out what it's like to be a business in COVID times. That being said, plenty of restaurants not open.
Yeah, I mean, the entire world has turned into an airport in the DMV. So congratulations.
What do you mean by that?
You know, you walk into a bar and they walk you to your seat and they tell you where you can put your cups and where you can take your mask on and, you know, where to take your shoes off. And it's just.
Wow, that's an interesting take. That's an interesting. Obviously, the breweries don't want to do that, right? Like that's not their choice. They just need to do that to be open, right? That's like the requirements that have been like
compliance
on them. Yeah, compliance. Capital C compliance.
Super fun stuff. You know what's more fun? All the shit that's happening in crypto.
Which shit specifically?
I mean, everything happening on Ethereum is fun. All the progress in terms of institutionalization of Bitcoin has been fun. Like,
let's start there because I have a hot take on that.
Crypto is like is doing well.
Crypto is a huge fucking bubble, and it's been has been very true as of the last week. Where do you want to start, with the Uniswap token airdrop, or are you with the MicroStrategy buying a bunch of Bitcoin? Because I have a hot take on the MicroStrategy buying.
All right,
Bitcoin.
Let's talk about MicroStrategy first.
Okay, so here's my hot take, right? Everyone is like super excited that MicroStrategy is putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets because it wants to flee from cash, right? But like, I think it's worth noting that like this isn't a board of directors that voted to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. This is one guy who controls the whole company, who just like make decisions, right? Like he's kind of a loose cannon. He's smart. Not saying he's dumb. Maybe he's a little bit impulsive. That's kind of my like kind of gut feeling. But it's just this one guy who has the controlling stick to this company, and he just decided to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. And the only difference about this guy is that he owns this company and it's his company's assets rather than his assets, but it's still basically his assets. It's not like a board of directors of like 12 people all voted in favor of like taking their dollars and putting it into Bitcoin. It's just one guy who is working with his own balance sheets of his own company. Like that's not that special, not in comparison to like the narrative of like companies are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. No, it's just one guy.
Well, I mean, I think that, yes, you're right that this is a small to medium-sized public company. It's not an Apple. It's not a Google. And that Michael does have a majority ownership of the shares, but he still has a board. And in all of his podcasts he did you listen to his podcast with Pomp or Stefan or any of that?
I listened to the Pomp one for the first half and then also with NLW.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, he talks about like sending Bitcoin educational content to his board members and having conversations with them and making a strategic business decision. That could be the narrative that he's just trying to spin. But so I think that it is fair to say that, hey, it is a smaller company and one man obviously controls it. But I think what is also fair to say is like, why did he choose Bitcoin?
Sure.
He chose Bitcoin because there was literally no other option.
Yeah.
Like it was we know that buybacks or nothing.
Right. And we know that this is a bottom up revolution, right? And so like it should be like something like this first before it turns into like, you know, a medium cap company where like multiple people had to vote on it before it gets to like a large cap company where like, you know, etc. Right. So like this is bottom up revolution, and like he's at the bottom, right? And so like I just want to like, and Bitcoiners haven't been talking about that particular angle where like, you know, this is kind of like the I'm not gonna say bottom of the barrel.
Man, beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like it's still good.
He's not the hero that we He's not the hero that
He's just first.
wanted, but he's the hero that we deserve, baby.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. No, that's
he's
true.
just
That's true.
he's just a man making it happen. But the problem that MicroStrategy had was that they had a massive cash balance. They wanted to be extremely conservative with that value, and they didn't want to lose it. And
Right.
they didn't have much. They really didn't have many options. Like
Right.
there's no account they could buy. There's no bond. Like they felt like every bond was overvalued. They didn't want to start they didn't want to become a hedge fund and start speculating on stocks.
Right.
So we're seeing a lot of companies with a lot of cash. What do? Or stock buybacks.
Right.
And that was one of the things that MicroStrategy did. They did a combo of stock buybacks and buying Bitcoin. Their stock did pump, so maybe that was part of it. Was they were buying their own stock, so they're buying it back. But I think this is bullish, man. Baby steps in the right direction.
It's super bullish.
And the fact that he could do it without moving the price, and buy a significant portion, like that's also bullish. Very few. I mean, he's reported that his average price was about 11,000, and that he was buying over. I think he was buying over the course of like 8 days. At least the first round of buying.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that like there was the first round of buying, and then he was like, "Fuck it, we're going more. Like we're doubling down."
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess what he said is they did a round of buying, then they did a round of stock buybacks, and then they had extra cash, and they wanted to allocate all of it. So they just bought more Bitcoin. But I mean, again, I think I'm not a MicroStrategy expert. I think it's just like Bitcoiners are celebrating because they moved from no public companies having it on their balance sheet, only startups and other crypto projects, and now one. And according to Jeff Booth, who is a macro commentator that's entered into the crypto and Bitcoin space. He is a Silicon Valley investor, Canadian guy, and he's been saying that several boards that he sits on are having the exact same conversation. So I don't know which boards he's referring to, but the fact that this is a conversation that has now been kind of like de-risked from a reputation perspective, like interesting and bullish.
Yeah, totally. And like one turns into two, but two turns into four, and then four turns into eight, right? Like it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1,
and
2,
8 turns
4,
into
8.
Apple.
I think we might have a few more steps in between 8 and Apple, but yes, 8 eventually turns into Apple. You're right. All right, moving on.
But here's the thing. Yeah, let's move on. But here's one of the things that Michael Saylor did say. He's like, if you are a serious company that has one guy at the board like MicroStrategy, you can do this in 60 days. If you're not, this is going to take you 6 months. This is going to take you 9 months. This is going to take you 12 months. So
nice. A nice
the FOMO starts now.
Right.
Just, start plotting it forward.
Nice little pump statement right there. It's like, hey,
he already got his Bitcoin. He can pump it as much as he wants at this point.
Now he just turns into a Bitcoiner. Okay, speaking of Bitcoiners, tBTC or Uniswap?
I guess, let's slowly transition to ETH.
Yeah,
so
okay, tBTC
would be a nice middle ground. Yeah.
Last I checked, which was a couple hours ago, there's 35 tBTC on Ethereum. And so here's the debate that I've been having with some Ethereum people is like, I'm stoked for tBTC because my thesis on tBTC versus all the other tokenized Bitcoin implementations is that like tBTC does a good job trying to retain Bitcoiner values, right? And so, if you use wBTC or RenBTC as a Bitcoiner, you're like compromising on your values, right? And tBTC is built in a way that doesn't force you to compromise, right? So that's why we like tBTC. And so that's why I'm bullish on tBTC, because it allows Bitcoiners to express their Bitcoin maxiness on Ethereum, right? Like you still get to be a Bitcoin maxi, you just get to do it on Ethereum, right? So that's why I'm excited. The other half of this argument is that like from the Ethereum, I was debating with some Ethereum people, that like the total addressable market for that is just small, right? Like there aren't that many Bitcoin maxis that would be like, I'm not choosing wBTC, I'm not choosing RenBTC, but I am choosing tBTC. Like the argument from the other side is that like there aren't that many people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the product market fit for tBTC has yet to be proven out. I think that if you really care about, like, from what I'm seeing from Ethereum, like WBTC is good enough.
Yeah, and almost preferable, right? Like that, because
Yeah.
if you're cool with what's it called, BlockFi, you should be cool with WBTC.
If you're cool with any centralized org, right, you're cool with WGTC. So how many people aren't cool enough with that? And honestly, like like I want to start. It's not gonna be until WBTC is forced to have a blacklist, like Tether, like USDC, which we know it's coming. That tBTC is really gonna have some sort of leg up, and I would not be shocked if Ren BTC was forced to have some sort of a blacklist. Like, there's a multi-sig that controls the majority of the funds. Like, at some point, there is a choke point right there. So we'll
Well,
see
hopefully
if
that thing
that
just
gets
gets deleted.
flexed.
We
Yeah,
want that thing to just go away.
we're gonna see what happens first, right? So as long as that remains, yeah. So I don't know. It's a delicate balancing act. It's kind of like DAI too. It's like, yeah, DAI exists. Yeah, the market, like the addressable market is much smaller. It's less liquid. It's more expensive. But at some point, you're gonna get censored, and you're gonna need to move on to something that can't censor you.
Also, DAI market cap and DAI liquidity is doing phenomenally. Like we're almost at a billion DAI. So it's I think people are kind of forgetting about it because like so many other tokenized crypto dollars are going through the roof, but DAI is doing a really good job. Could be doing a better job. Could be doing a better job.
I would like to see it as like percentage of address of like the total stablecoin cap, and see, just to kind of put it in perspective what a billion DAI means. But like, there's no arguing; it's more
Right.
expensive. It takes $2.3 to make one DAI, whereas it
Right.
takes
Well, no,
theoretically
that's only
less
with
than a
True.
dollar to make one Tether.
That's
Yeah, I guess
that's
it's
not
not true if you put USDC in, but
right. Yeah, there's a lot of assets that I think 50% of DAI is backed by other crypto dollars, which is kind of a lot actually.
sus. Then does that even make that DAI as good? That kind of makes DAI 50% as good.
No, because it's also backstopped by the value of MKR, right? So like MKR is like the backstop middleman between like any centralized
They
asset
they
and
arb
DAI.
the risk.
Right.
They arb the
Yes.
risk.
They are the risk. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. That's a good way to
I
put it.
mean, dude, it's gonna be fun to see all this stuff shake out. Like, I really think the hammer is yet to come, and I'm just really excited to see and scared to see how censorship resistant this stuff truly is.
Well, like if the hammer came down on MakerDAO and DAI, like that would harm a lot of people. Like that wouldn't be good. That would cause like orders of magnitude more harm than it would just for compliance purposes. I was like, I don't think that would happen.
So did the war on drugs. So is the fight on terrorism. So, like,
Yeah, but there's some
we got to
racism
be
mixed
ready
in
for
there
this
too.
stuff. You know, terrorists use DeFi. Terrorists, one organization funds their thing by like coming up with some cool scheme, and then all of a sudden the target's on your back.
Yeah, but yeah, no,
Again, like,
I don't
hey,
think I don't think
I
you can take that
personally
old
think
model and apply it to the new world. I think racism has more of you to do with it than you think.
I think taking advantage of people has more to do with it, and dominating. And racism is just is a string that they pull to suit their ultimate needs.
What I'm saying is I think their ultimate needs are to remove competition from other races, and that is manifested in like the drug war.
I would say, okay, well, let's not get down this hole.
Okay.
So actually, I want to transition to Uniswap, because, okay, I want you to kind of explain. Like, I can understand there's a lot of reasons why this token comparatively to other tokens is super bullish. Like, it's
hmm
attached to Uniswap.
hmm
It seems as though liquidity mining can drive a lot of liquidity to something, especially in the short term. But my question is like, Uniswap was this darling of like a thing that is full robot on the spectrum of like human to robot, and
Right.
now maybe the majority of liquidity is not.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Did
I
this
don't
just
know.
change its
I
its
don't know.
robotness on the robot spectrum because of this token? Like, did that kind of change what Uniswap is? And if the majority of liquidity is no longer full robot, is it really that darling that it once was?
Yeah, and now I'm realizing I'm dropping the ball as a co-host because I did not research this prior. I don't know how the Uniswap token would inject itself into previous Uniswap exchanges that were created before the token was created. I don't think that's possible. But I don't think that's possible. So I think all current Uniswap exchanges are still as robotic as they previously were. But then the question is, how then why is there any value to the token, right? But let's go ahead and go with the premise that like Uniswap now is like, well, now it has human governance, right? So now it's less robotic. First off, anyone can fork Uniswap and spin up a robotic version of it. Like that's always an option to them. But
Yeah, but the liquidity network may
yeah,
not potentially may not be there. It depends on
then
where
it,
it
right,
gets built up moving forward.
right, yeah, and so yes, you're right, and basically it runs on faith that token governance can work in the same way as like typical governance over a company can, from people that are anonymous or pseudo anonymous, and that will still happen. And if that can work, then you know that's great. And now it also it's important for like the team needs to hand over control. Like VCs need to exit, right? And then we also need to stop having like compliance burdens, which Uniswap totally does, because now they can just say like, well, no, the token exists, so we can't do anything about it. Sorry. That's kind of the motivations I think for the token that came from.
Yeah, I mean, if I guess so, I guess I want your. I listened to your Bankless episode on Uniswap and the Uni token, and I mean, you guys had mostly positive things to say. Like, I want to get like your very honest opinion. Like, I I obviously think like Uniswap, like a lot of people thought that Uniswap worked really well. It was one of a kind. It had a different approach. It's kind of strange to me that they decided to kind of go with the flow on this. Like, I mean, there are obvious liquidity mining benefits, but are those long-term benefits? Like it seemed like it didn't even need that. Other people were liquidity mining and feeding into them as it was. Like I'm just kind of curious. Like, does this token compromise like that one thing? And curious what your thoughts are on like how it was all done, and if you thought that
Mhm.
everything was done well
Well,
along
so
those lines.
I think the token distribution was done basically as well as it could have been. Like I could have a few qualms that I could bring up, but basically like A to A plus like token distribution.
Pretty fair, yeah, super fair in the
Yeah.
grand scheme
Uh-huh.
of things. Super
In the
fair.
grand scheme of things, yes. Turns out we've been mining Uniswap all along, right? Like even you, Christian, I think you got your
I
airdrop
thought I was
immediately,
mining
right?
more, but I was a little disappointed by how little I mined.
Yeah. So that would be my one qualm, right? Like if you traded on Uniswap once, you got the same amount as somebody who traded on Uniswap like 1,000 times. But like small change in the grand scheme of things. Uniswap V3 is going to be a thing, and there's going to be a ton of features in that, and I think that's where the token becomes much more relevant, right? And so, like I just said, like Uniswap V2, those exchanges were minted before the tokens were ever minted, right? So how could the token impact those exchanges, right? Like all of the, and I'm actually growing more and more confident on this as I think about it. All of the current exchanges in Uniswap from Uniswap V2 and V1 are robotic, 100%, like no compromises. Like the Uniswap token can't control those, especially after the fact of the token minting. But like I said, Uniswap V3 is coming, and there's plenty of new features that we can talk about there. There's going to be some layer 2 implementation, probably more efficient order routing, and importantly, like, and this is true for all protocols, is like it doesn't matter what V3 has, because like in the future, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, like DeFi will be different, right? And we'll need Uniswap to upgrade and integrate, right? And so that's how, and the team can't do it, and the VCs can't do it, because like this whole thing is supposed to be more decentralized than teams and VCs, right? And so the token solves that problem. So I'm thinking that like the Uniswap token comes before Uniswap V3, and it's really much more relevant to Uniswap V3.
And again, like I'm just trying to throw out some scenarios to see how your head thinks. But how is Uniswap V3 with the token not a direct attack on Uniswap V2 as like the former robot token, former robot protocol?
Yeah. Well, because at the end of the day, all users of Uniswap V2 have the choice to accept Uniswap V3 or not. So like no one's being coerced. And so I guess liquidity could be fractured, but it also could be net additive as well. And we could also order a route between both Uniswap V3 and Uniswap V2 too. That is possible.
Okay, I mean, like again, not trying to be adversarial here, but just trying to like bring us some up some ideas.
I mean, I feel like I should have done a little bit more research on how the token relates to Uniswap V2. I think it's very possible that the answer is that it doesn't, except for liquidity mining, which again doesn't have actually any material impact on the exchanges itself. It's more of like a layer on top of it.
It's like
But
it
also there's
got
not
strapped onto it.
right. Yeah. Like built on top rather than integrated inside. Right. But there's also we just don't have information about Uniswap v3, right? Like very few people know about what's up with Uniswap v3, and so like there's only speculation that we can really do at this point.
You know, I'm the best at speculating.
Especially on DeFi tokens.
Oh yeah, I'm great at that. 100% accuracy. What else do we want to talk about?
Those are kind of the big
What's
things.
this chart from Ryan?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So like the Uniswap chart from Ryan is like it was in a descending. It was going down in a line, right? And then it kind of started to stop going down in that line, and now it's kind of holding flat on that line. And that's in relationship to Ether, which is bouncing off of its own line, which is relating to Bitcoin, which is bouncing off the 20-week moving average, right? And also YFI is also as like a indicator for the rest of DeFi is also doing something similar, right? And so like everything seems to have found support. So okay, so long as we continue to hold that support, COVID go away.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It seems to me like it's just the daily chop.
Yeah, you're totally right. But it's all happening all at once, which is why it's interesting. But yeah, and then that could also just be like the daily chop of the macro market.
So I know that you're at a position now where you're not converting a lot of fiat into crypto, but like how are you thinking about, maximizing your opportunity in these, let's just say the next few months if it just continues like this?
I'm talking about like all encompassing all markets.
Yeah, or just the
Crypto.
crypto market. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm spending 90% of my energy and thought into the crypto market. I think I spend as much time on stocks as I do on fantasy football, which is not that much, just enough to be effective. It's like just enough to be effective.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of positioned in exactly the way like I want to be. And so I don't really see myself making too many moves, right? Like now that the Uniswap token exists and I have my bag of that because, thanks David for being a very disorganized, chaotic individual and using a bunch of different wallets. Let's just say I had more than 2 wallets that I had traded Uniswap with. And so like got that and got my wifey and got my ether and like I got a little bit of landed a little bit of SNX and like I don't really know what else there's nothing else that really kind of fits the bill. So I'm pretty content to be positioned and like with the income I'm making, I'm like you said, I'd rather like get a new paint job on my super old 1970s car, right? Like I'd rather like kind of do stuff in my life, right? um, like if I kept on buying crypto, it kind of wouldn't really be a material impact on it.
Nice. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like trading. I guess my point there is like it seems as though you're positioned yourself where you've acquired quality assets that are at
Yes.
least what you would consider to be quality assets. Although
Yes.
you're definitely missing the best quality asset,
We'll
but
see. Well,
that's
but
just a personal
my
preference.
portfolio balance in said asset seems to continue to go up. So in portfolio denominated terms, I keep getting more of that best quality asset. So I'm going
Yep.
to
So I'm
continue
not
to,
going to tell you what to do.
yeah, going to keep on doing the same strategy that was been doing that.
Yep. Um, but yeah, so I mean, part of your strategy isn't necessarily trading, which
No,
I just like want to like you can do this stuff without trading. Period. In my
like, okay,
opinion.
so I sold a very small amount of Uniswap at like $7 or something, just because like, well, I got it for free, and it went from $3 at the day of to $7, which is, over 200%. So I was like, well, I'll just sell a little bit, but like wasn't very much. And and it was just because like it just felt right, just felt like the smart thing to do. So like I do like small trading like that, like you would call it trading, but no, I'm not a trader, and I don't really suggest anyone in DeFi to be a trader. Like we are quote unquote in a new paradigm of like how assets are generated and how they're valued, right? And so it's just not the time to be trading. Like there's real value to be captured, and like don't be a trader unless you are trying to be a trader, right? Like just do the simple thing. And it's also much a weight off my back. I'm also not much of a yield farmer, which is kind of weird because like all of crypto, all of DeFi is like being degenerate yield farmers right now. It's just so much easier to just not bother with it, right? Like there's other ways to access like outsized returns, right? Like you don't have to be a yield farmer. There's simple things you
Buying
can
and
do.
holding early.
Buying and holding early, and then taking a very responsible amount of leverage.
Yeah, well, you already do a little bit more than I do. I'm like 1x long all the time, pretty much. Even
you
even in
got
my
you got to
shitcoin.
express a little bit more bullishness than 1x long. Like 1.2x long is great.
1x long in a point that in a place that I can't even touch it. So
Mm, yeah, yeah. You're guaranteed to not lose at that point. Sure.
yeah, I mean like just so bullish. It's like why mess with it? Like it's the
Because
biggest move in history.
because if you're so bullish, you could be 20% more bullish.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can mess around like some like maybe I can allocate something to that,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. All right. Well, this is a fun rip, man. Always good to kind of get the pulse here. I think David and I are just so busy doing other stuff. Uh, I feel like this is kind of going to become like more of like a noted style podcast where
Mm-hmm.
David and I just kind of come together, talk about stuff. Sometimes we have guests. Not gonna force it too much, keep it casual, but keep it consistent as well. So
Absolutely.
have no fear.
I do want to show a future podcast though with the LedgerCast boys. They have a very trading focused podcast, so they're traders first and foremost, so trader maximalists. And I listen to them because they kind of make unique content that doesn't really kind of map into anything else because it's trading focused. And there's two of them, and one's Brian and one's Josh. And Brian is the guy that like kind of explored DeFi as it became a thing, like explored farming and kind of got into that world, like got into Uniswap, like didn't know what Uniswap was like 2 months ago, and then started creating like content around it. So like really kind of dove in and kind of like publicized his experiments, publicized his like findings, right? And meanwhile, Josh is on the other side of things, like saying like, oh, well, that's a Ponzi, and that's a Ponzi too, and that's a Ponzi, and they're all Ponzi's, right? And so and so as I've been listening to them, it's like, wow, this is just me and Christian, but like trader versions of them, right? Of us, right? And so we're gonna have a podcast with us four and kind of talk about that because it's very interesting to see how like there's a lot of David and Christian in them but in trading form, right? And they come into
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the same kind of conversations that we frequently end up in, and I kind of want to just talk about that with them. I think that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'd probably sound a lot like Joss, except I'm telling Joss that he shouldn't trade and just hold.
Well, we can talk
Like,
about that too.
it's like, dude, if you just hold, you can make, 90% as much, if not more, and you could do a whole nother job.
I'm pretty sure that he makes money trading though. So like I'm not sure why
Yeah.
he's going to listen to that.
No, no. I mean, hey, he's a professional. I mean,
Hmm.
I think he has like over 100,000 followers just,
Yeah.
following his trades. So
They both have a fuck ton of followers.
I feel like, you earned that.
Yeah, for sure. For
But
sure.
unless you're willing to earn it, just hodl.
Yep. Agreed.
And make sure to give us 5-star reviews. Peace.
Calling it good right there. Let's do it. Oh wait, you're still recording. You're the one recording.